My name is Sophia Jensen. I'm 36 years old, living in Charleston, South Carolina, and I had been married for 12 years to Daniel, a man who prided himself on his strategic mind and a work schedule so busy he forgot his own wife's birthday. On Tuesday afternoon at exactly 2:46 p.m. as I was finishing a client report, my phone buzzed gently. A notification popped up from our shared family cloud, something that rarely happened since Daniel usually controlled all tech access. I didn't think much of it until I saw the synced email title. Booking confirmation from Ocean Spirit Cruises, Platinum Suite, Couples Spa Package, Private Dinner. I froze. The email wasn't addressed to me. It had auto-synced into our shared folder because Daniel had once used that account to book a flight, years ago. I opened the email and quietly read every detail. 7-day Caribbean cruise, departing from Miami on March 14th. Guest 1, Daniel Jensen. Guest 2, Amanda Carter. No need to search, I knew exactly who Amanda Carter was. Light brown hair, flirty smile, and that red dress she wore to our Christmas party last year. Introduced to me as the newly hired project manager at Daniel's firm. She stood in my kitchen, took a glass of red wine from my hand, and looked at me with an expression I now recognized. Not indifference, but pity. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't even cry. A cold chill crept up from my spine, freezing every nerve. I scrolled to the end of the email where it listed their cabin number. 9242. Deck 11, ocean facing, along with a massage appointment and a romantic dinner booking, scheduled on the exact day Daniel claimed he'd be giving a keynote presentation at a conference in Seattle. And then another notification appeared, a photo upload from the cloud. It was a selfie taken in a changing room. Amanda stood in front of the mirror wearing black lace lingerie, the tag still hanging, lips painted bright red, smiling wide. The caption hit like a punch to the gut. Can't wait for you to take this off me, counting down the hours, baby. My chest tightened as if someone had wrapped a fist around my lungs. I stared at the screen, a single question ringing in my mind. Why me? Why am I the one being betrayed? Then I remembered something that stopped me from hurling the phone across the room. Just last month at a charity gala, I had overheard Amanda gushing to someone about her fiancé, a tech entrepreneur named Ethan Moore, who was preparing to expand his company into Texas. I remembered how she waved her hand to show off her engagement ring, bragging about their pre-wedding romantic getaway this spring. I immediately opened my laptop and typed Amanda Carter into social media. Her profile was public, flooded with couple photos and captions like, soulmate, blessed, bride. And there he was, Ethan Moore. His face familiar. I had seen him briefly at a networking event in January, giving a polished speech about innovation and scale. One of her most recent posts, from 3 days ago, made my breath hitch. I'm heading on a solo cruise to recharge before the wedding chaos begins. Ocean Spirit, here I come! The cruise dates matched perfectly. But instead of falling apart, something inside me clicked into focus. I had done enough of that before. No more. I stared at Amanda's engagement photos with Ethan again. Not to confirm the betrayal, but to study his face. He was sharp, calm, articulate. I remembered seeing him at a digital transformation summit in October, commanding the room like it was built for him. Founder of Helix Quant, a rising tech firm out of Austin, Texas. I didn't hesitate long. 12 years in a marriage I thought was stable had taught me one thing. When the truth surfaces, you either collapse or you rise and act. I chose the latter. I opened LinkedIn, found Ethan Moore's public profile, and with just a few clicks, I had his company email. I began typing, concise, cold, void of emotion. Mr. Meyer, I believe we need to discuss something urgent regarding your fiancée Amanda Carter and my husband Daniel Jensen. I've recently received a cruise confirmation for a joint booking between them, scheduled the same time you mentioned a solo trip. Attached is a screenshot of the email and a photo you likely haven't seen. If you're available, I propose a brief meeting at Oak House Cafe on Queen Street, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I attached one image. Amanda, in lingerie, with the caption, counting down the hours. No accusations, no venom, just facts, delivered plainly. I hit send, then I sat staring at the screen, waiting for those little gray dots that signal someone's reading. 5 minutes later his reply arrived. "I'll be there at 9, Ethan." The next morning when I walked into Oak House, Ethan Moore was already there, seated in the corner with an espresso in front of him. He looked exactly as I remembered, except now his eyes had lost that confident sheen. When I sat down, he didn't bother with small talk. "You were right," he said. "Amanda told me she was traveling alone to de-stress before the wedding." I nodded and slid the printed email and photo packet across the table. Ethan scanned them, his hands tightening with every page. He didn't curse. He didn't explode, but his lips drew tight, bloodless. "What do you want me to do?" he asked, voice low and stripped of formality. I looked him straight in the eye. "I've already booked a single cabin on their cruise, cabin 9244, right next to 9242, but I think 2 witnesses would be better than 1. What do you say?" Ethan leaned back slightly, eyes drifting to the window. Then he turned back with the faintest of smiles, the first sign of life since I walked in. "We're getting on that ship," he said, "and I think it's time they know what it feels like to be watched, cornered, and completely out of control." I didn't smile back, but something stirred in my chest. Not relief, not anger, clarity. Less than 2 hours after that meeting, we had both secured our tickets. Ocean Spirit Cruise, cabins 9243 and 9244. 2 rooms, side by side with theirs. I used my private credit card, the one Daniel never monitored. Ethan booked his under a personal leisure account. We agreed on a cover story, 2 old college friends who happened to reconnect after more than 10 years and decided to take a spontaneous vacation together that week to relive old memories. It was just believable enough not to raise suspicion, and vague enough that no one would bother to question it. We didn't have a grand plan yet, just presence. We would show up in the right place at the right moment, making it impossible for them to run. "How do you think Amanda will react when she sees me on the deck?" Ethan asked as we stepped out of the cafe. I squinted. "Depends. Is she as quick with excuses as she is with picking lingerie?" Ethan let out a short but genuine laugh, then nodded. "I'm looking forward to that moment." We walked away. 2 strangers with one shared mission, no romance, no expectations, just 2 betrayed people preparing to stage a scene their partners never saw coming. 3 days after our meeting at Oak House, I stood in Ethan's temporary apartment in Savannah, looking at 5 dresses lined up neatly on the bed. I felt a strange calm I hadn't known before. Not the numb kind that comes with giving up, but the sharp focus of someone stepping onto a stage, knowing every line and where the spotlight will hit. We had worked non-stop. Ethan, just as I predicted, was methodical. He printed out the full itinerary for the Ocean Spirit cruise, mapped out the cabin layout, check-in times, island excursion schedules, even the locations of the spa, restaurants, and bars Daniel and Amanda had selected. He organized everything in a color-coded Excel sheet. Blue for potential contact points, red for areas to avoid, yellow for strategic appearances. I handled the rest: wardrobe, body language, facial expressions, and the subtle details that would sell our cover. We need to look like old friends catching up, close but not clingy, relaxed but not too affectionate. If we get it right, our presence alone will shake them, and they won't know how to respond, I said as I handed Ethan a folder of edited photos. I'd created in Photoshop, fake college pictures of the 2 of us, with my hair cropped short and flared jeans. Ethan tilted his head, smiling. "You're planning this like a director staging her own life." I answered calmly, "Because that's exactly what I'm doing." We agreed to check in an hour apart and appear separately on the first day to avoid raising suspicion. My cabin, 9244, was to the left of Daniel's. Ethan's 9243 was on the right. Perfect, like 2 blades pressed to either side of their necks. I brought 5 dresses, each one selected for a specific scenario. A beach stroll, a fine dining dinner, a cocktail party, a guided island tour, and a full-length black satin gown for formal night. Daniel hadn't seen any of them. Each piece was chosen to present a stronger, more unshakable version of myself. The woman he no longer had control over. Ethan was no less prepared. He purchased a new tuxedo for formal night and 3 crisp white dress shirts, perfectly pressed. He had the kind of look that could make Amanda stumble with just one glance, and I knew he'd use it to our advantage. We even rehearsed reaction lines. If Daniel ran into me at a restaurant, I'd feign light surprise, not angry, not broken, just a raised brow. Well, what a coincidence. You're here too? If Amanda saw Ethan at the bar, he'd lean back with a half smile. Fate? Or did you forget your schedule again? We even recorded voice memos to practice tone and delivery for those velvet dagger moments. Sharp lines they couldn't refute, but that would leave them stripped bare. I had also prepared things Daniel never knew I had. Bank statements, restored text histories from our cloud, and a running document of every lie he'd told over the past year. Not to play the victim, but to be ready with undeniable evidence at the precise moment it mattered. Ethan had his own files. He contacted a former college friend who now worked in Amanda's IT department and retrieved GPS logs, flagged charges on company credit cards, and internal reports showing Amanda had used corporate funds for unauthorized purchases. He said, "I'm not doing this for revenge. I want her to understand that trust isn't something you bargain with." The night before departure, we met at a small riverside wine bar. We were no longer just the betrayed. We were people who had taken back control and were about to walk into a battleground we had drawn ourselves. "You ready for this?" Ethan asked, raising a glass of whiskey. I looked out at the lights shimmering on the water, then back at him. Ready for everything, but not just to expose them. To reclaim my life. He nodded. Good, because after this trip, nothing will be the same. I smiled, not the kind of smile that comes from joy, but the kind worn by someone who knows exactly what's coming and isn't afraid. The first day aboard the Ocean Spirit began under a flawless blue sky with a cool sea breeze sweeping across the deck as if unaware that 4 lives were about to collide in a storm. Daniel and Amanda boarded around 10 a.m., according to a crew member I'd befriended earlier. Ethan and I checked in separately on Deck 11, 15 minutes apart. We weren't in a hurry, no need to rush, let them savor the last sweetness of their little parallel world. By the afternoon, it was time to move. The first stop, Harbor Key, a private island owned by the cruise line, was the perfect setting for an accidental encounter. Golden sunlight poured across the white sand, and lounge chairs lined the shore facing the sea. I wore a cobalt blue swimsuit with a sheer mesh wrap, my hair was tied high, retro sunglasses perched on my nose. Ethan waited at the coconut drink bar, shirt slightly unbuttoned, dark shades on, radiating enough chill to make the bartender forget to smile. We chose our chairs, right in front of Daniel and Amanda, 2 rows away, close enough to strike. And the lightning came, quicker than I expected. Daniel was carrying 2 vibrant cocktails back from the bar. As he walked past me, I looked up just as sunlight filtered through the palm leaves, casting a dazzling glow across my face. He froze like a man struck by lightning in the middle of summer. I smiled, softly, as if greeting an old acquaintance at the grocery store. I even raised a hand and waved. "Seattle looks different, doesn't it?" I said, just loud enough to rise above the crashing waves. The glasses in his hands trembled, orange liquor trailing down his wrist. His eyes widened, jaw clenched. Not a word, not even a breath. I stood up, adjusted my dress strap and walked toward him, my feet sinking into the sand, each step cutting through the years of blind trust. "Quite the coincidence, Daniel. The last time you lied to me, you were on a business trip to Seattle, remember? And now?" "Amanda..." I stopped right in front of him. No shouting, just words, sharp enough to sting. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. I had never seen Daniel speechless. A voice behind me, cold and weighty, broke the silence. "Aren't you going to introduce him, Amanda?" I didn't need to turn. I knew Ethan was standing there. Amanda spun around, and when she saw him, her face drained of color. She stuttered, lips dry, tugging her sarong as if it could shield her from the fallout. "Ethan, I thought you were in Texas." Ethan didn't respond. He handed her a printed document. She glanced at it and went pale. I didn't need to read it. I knew exactly what it was. A receipt for the cruise booking under Daniel Jensen's name, paid with a corporate credit card from the company where Daniel served as an executive. I turned to Daniel, my voice even. "A company card, Daniel? Altura Global's card?" The one I helped you get approved for business expenses? Turns out it's pretty useful for booking ocean view suites, with couples massages no less. His face flushed red, ready to argue. But I cut in. Don't deny it. I called Altura's accounting team before I left Charleston. And Ethan? He's already spoken with Helix Quant's finance department. Seems like your little romance didn't just wreck a marriage, it bankrupted corporate ethics. Amanda turned to Ethan, her eyes filling with tears. It's not what you think. He scoffed. Not what I think? Amanda, you left a trail clearer than a treasure map. Around us, a few beachgoers had started to notice. A couple to my left even removed their sunglasses for a better view. I adjusted my strap and tilted my head. Such a shame, your secret honeymoon kicking off with an audience. I turned without waiting for a reply. Ethan walked beside me, shoulder to shoulder. Silent, but his eyes mirrored mine, calm, calculating. This was just the beginning. After that first beach encounter, none of us were the same. Daniel avoided eye contact like it burned. Amanda looked like a pale version of herself, no lipstick, no confidence. But Ethan and I, we were alert, composed, and meticulous, like two performers staging a 5-day show. On day 2, we accidentally appeared at the spa just as they arrived for their couples treatment. The receptionist, whom I'd gifted a little something the day before, politely informed them the couple's suite had been reassigned due to a system glitch. Amanda was led to a private room, Daniel to the men's section. Ethan and I strolled past the hallway hand in hand, smiles soft and vague enough to drive someone mad. That afternoon, they joined a kayaking tour around Coraline Island. So did we. We didn't sit close, just close enough for Daniel to see me laughing with another man, sunlight bouncing off the water. Amanda kept glancing over her shoulder. Neither of them could focus on the experience. By night 3, the rooftop restaurant hosted a wine and seafood tasting. Ethan ordered a bottle of Napa Valley Cabernet. I wore a deep red velvet backless dress, the exact shade Daniel once called too bold for someone as quiet as you. I wore it because of that. We sat 2 tables away, close enough to hear Amanda hiss. I feel like we're being watched, Daniel. Why are they everywhere? He whispered back, barely containing his irritation. Shut up, don't make a scene. I clinked glasses with Ethan, eyes fixed on the unraveling mess across the room. Night 4 was the formal gala, the cruise's grandest event. Champagne flowed, a live band played. Amanda wore a silver bodycon dress, hair in a high bun, clinging to whatever confidence she had left. Daniel, stiff in his tux, sat next to her at a table for 2 front row, just as their reservation email had described. We arrived 10 minutes late. I wore a long black satin gown, deep V-neck, hair loose, makeup bolder than usual. Ethan beside me, sharp in his tailored suit. We mingled, shook hands, laughed with familiar faces from wine night, unaware they were part of an orchestrated collapse. As dinner began, I gave a subtle nod to the sound tech, someone I'd accidentally shown some interesting photos to. A voice boomed from the mic. Before the dancing begins, we have a special surprise for 2 of our guests, to honor their 18-month journey together. I tilted my head and smiled. On the LED screen behind the stage, photos began to appear. Daniel and Amanda at a resort in Mexico last June. At a ski resort in Colorado last January. At a restaurant in the Bahamas last September. All were security camera images I collected when Daniel still used the same travel agency's loyalty account. A few murmurs spread through the room. Daniel shot up. Turn it off. But before anyone could react, the final image appeared, a screenshot of Amanda's engagement post, her beaming beside Ethan, the diamond ring dazzling under the caption, "Officially his, can't wait for forever." Date posted, 4 months after the Mexico trip, which meant she was still hand in hand with Daniel. The entire ballroom fell silent, as if someone had sucked the sound out of the air. Amanda froze, her lips trembling. Daniel looked around, face pale as if he'd just been slapped. Ethan stood, his voice calm. She never canceled our engagement, she just ran 2 lives in parallel and 2 bank accounts. I followed, lifting a champagne glass. We're not here to humiliate anyone, just to clarify, down to the photos, the dates, the footprints. What you thought were secrets were just unverified data. No applause, no laughter, but I could feel the gazes. Not curious anymore, but reassessing the entire narrative. Daniel grabbed Amanda's hand, trying to leave. Before they turned, I gently placed a USB drive on their table. A few voice recordings, in case your memories get selective. They left wordlessly, and that night, as Ethan and I danced under the chandeliers, every spotlight seemed to converge on us. But we didn't need light. The truth was the brightest spotlight of all. The next morning, I woke to the soft crash of waves against the ship, and sunlight seeping through the cabin curtains. But unlike every other morning during my marriage, I woke up fully awake. No illusions. No hesitation. I put on a simple white dress, tied my hair up, then walked to Ethan's cabin to carry out the final part of our plan. On his table lay a navy leather album, silver embossed, A Journey to Remember, Ocean Spirit, 2024. I flipped through the pages, distant shots of Daniel and Amanda, at the spa, on deck, at the wine tasting by the beach. None too revealing, but every expression captured rising tension, confusion, fear. Amanda, with her back turned, crying. Daniel gripping his wine glass, head down, sitting half a meter apart in the dining hall, surrounded by laughter from other tables. I handed the album to Ethan. He nodded, then called Luca, one of the cruise photographers, someone we'd treated to coffee along with a generous tip. Luca promised to deliver the album personally to cabin 9242 around lunchtime. Subtle. At 1:15 p.m., Ethan and I stood down the hall, 2 cabins from theirs. We clearly saw the attendant knock and hand Daniel the sleek, shrink-wrapped package. The door closed. We couldn't hear words, but minutes later the yelling started. Quiet at first, then louder. Something crashed, glass shattered, Amanda screamed. "You promised. You said no one would ever know." Ethan looked at me, his voice even. "We're not done yet." At 3 p.m., the ship's intercom came on. "Would passengers Daniel Jensen and Amanda Carter please report to the management office on Deck 2 regarding travel expense inquiries?" Not accusatory, not harsh, but enough to make everyone turn and whisper. Ethan and I waited in the hallway on Deck 2 as they exited the elevator. Daniel's shirt was rumpled, his eyes downcast. Amanda wore sunglasses, but they didn't hide the panic. Inside the office, a representative from Altura Global, the company Daniel worked for, was already there. I had sent them every receipt, email, and reservation detail. Spa vouchers, suite upgrades, charges to the corporate card. All aligned with the days Daniel had claimed to be at conferences. Amanda, on the other hand, received a notice from Helix Quant's finance assistant. Her system access was locked and her account frozen pending a review of her personal spending through the startup. Ethan had submitted his analysis to the board 3 days earlier, and it had just detonated. We stood outside in plain view through the glass, letting them see us. I watched Daniel lift his head. No anger this time. Only what I had once seen in my own eyes the night I found the yacht email. Collapse. When the ship docked in Miami the next morning, I waited by the gangway, holding a small beige envelope. Daniel arrived late. He looked drained, shirt wrinkled, suitcase dragging behind. Amanda had disembarked an hour earlier. I handed him the envelope. He didn't take it at first, but eventually accepted it, as if he already knew what was inside. I spoke clearly. "The divorce papers are ready. The court will mail the official copy to the attorney's office. All accounts have been separated. The Charleston house was rekeyed on Monday. Your belongings are at Harborview Hotel, room 604. I booked it a week ago." Daniel looked at me, his eyes empty. Not because he couldn't guess, but because there was nothing left to hold on to. I walked away, without looking back. Behind me, Ethan was waiting, holding a cup of coffee and a canvas tote bag embroidered with the Ocean Spirit logo. He handed me a pair of sunglasses and said softly, "Well, that's the end of a chapter." Put on the glasses and smiled. "And now, it's the start of another one." 6 months later, I was making coffee in the sunlit kitchen of my new apartment, a seaside unit in Wilmington, North Carolina. From the 6th-floor balcony, I could see sails gliding across the horizon each morning, and hear the waves crashing like the steady heartbeat of a life I was rebuilding from scratch. I no longer lived in the shadow of 12 years of marriage. I no longer woke up to lifeless messages like late meeting or don't wait for dinner. My days now began in silence, without deception, without compromise, and without needing anyone's permission to simply breathe. I sat down, opened my laptop, and checked my schedule. My small brand consulting business, the same one Daniel once scoffed at as a temporary whim, now had 3 steady clients and a young assistant working remotely. Every contract I signed was proof. I was no longer the woman behind someone else's success. I stood on my own terms. My phone buzzed, a message from Ethan. Just landed. Lunch at Mason's like always? I smiled and replied with one word, yes. We met at the end of each month, without fail, not to relieve the days of revenge, but to share what had changed, and to remind each other that we made it through what once seemed impossible. Ethan looked lighter than he had on the last day aboard the ship. His hair was shorter, his smile more relaxed. His company, Helix Quant, had just opened a new satellite office in Raleigh, and he'd decided to temporarily move there for 6 months. I told him about a branding project I'd just landed with a natural cosmetics company, and he shared how one of Amanda's former investors had reached out to him, after learning the former CFO was now facing 3 federal charges for embezzling corporate funds. The trial hasn't started, but according to the lawyer, even a suspended sentence is a long shot, Ethan said casually. And Daniel? After an internal investigation, he was demoted to the market analysis division, relocated from Manhattan to a small branch office in Charlotte. An internal restriction from Altura barred him from using any corporate expense accounts for the next 3 years. According to Caroline, my former friend who still kept in touch with a few of Daniel's old colleagues, he now lived alone in a rented apartment, quiet, and no longer invited to high-profile events. I had returned every wedding gift, every memory photo, and anything that no longer belonged to me, not because I wanted him to remember, but because I didn't want anything left that would make me remember him. After lunch, we walked along the beach, where seagulls perched on the rail like quiet guardians of the sea. Ethan suddenly spoke, his hand brushing a small velvet box inside his coat pocket. Last week, Ocean Spirit sent me a promo email, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Thinking of another cruise? I looked out. The dark blue water glittered under the sun. 6 months ago, the ocean was where everything fell apart. Now it offered something else. With the caption, "What if we went, just as friends, no pretending closeness, no script." I paused for a moment, then nodded. I'm in, as long as this time our room isn't next to anyone else's. Ethan laughed. Scout's honor. That night I lay on the sofa, a steaming cup of tea in hand, reflecting on all I had gone through. The pain, the fury, the betrayal, then the rebuilding, the independence, and finally, the rebirth. I don't call it a victory, because what I regained wasn't dominance. It was the right to live by my own values. The truth hurt, but it also freed me. Not just from a toxic marriage, but from the shell I had wrapped myself in for over a decade. On the side table near the window, sunlight streamed across an electronic ticket that read, Ocean Spirit New Year's Journey, Cabin 1301. I would board again, not to expose anyone, not to get revenge. I was going for peace, to begin a new year, with myself. Sophia's story is a powerful reminder that betrayal doesn't have to be the end. It can be the start of freedom. When the truth came out, she didn't spiral or seek blind revenge. She rose with calm and clarity. In a world where so many remain silent, Sophia chose to reclaim her voice, her dignity, and her life. In real life, her story proves this. The truth may hurt, but it's also the shortest path to healing and liberation. What do you think about how Sophia faced betrayal and rebuilt her life? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about love, family, and life's most meaningful lessons. My name is Mia Harper. I'm 35 years old and live in Seattle, Washington. 6 years ago, my husband Adam and I founded a strategic consulting firm called Bluegate Partners. Back then, we had nothing, just determination and a few modest connections in the industry. We worked day and night from our one-bedroom apartment, surviving on instant noodles, hoping that someday our names would be on the partnership lists of major corporations. I was the strategist, the one who wrote the plans, built the solutions, analyzed the markets. Adam had the charm. Smooth talker, attractive, and knew how to make people feel at ease from the first handshake. I used to think we made the perfect team. 4 months ago, Bluegate was invited to present a restructuring strategy to Ventricore, a tech corporation seeking a long-term partner for a nationwide expansion plan. The project was so massive that winning the contract would catapult our company to a whole new level. I spent the entire summer researching, analyzing each branch and every line in their financial reports. Adam ran around having lunch with investors and delivering gift baskets to prospective clients. Or at least, that's what I believed. On a Saturday morning while cleaning the kitchen after a late breakfast, I accidentally bumped Adam's iPad on the counter. The screen lit up. A message appeared, still unlocked. She thinks she's gonna shine tomorrow. Once the proposal's sent, we'll take out the trash. Underneath it was a red heart emoji next to the name Rachel. Rachel. Adam's assistant. The woman I had once trusted to handle scheduling and presentation materials. She just transferred to Seattle 3 months ago after Adam had personally requested her from the Los Angeles office for her outstanding potential. I stared at the screen, my fingers unconsciously scrolling up. A thread of messages appeared. Mia stayed up until 2 a.m. just to double-check the slides. Perfect. The more exhausted she is, the more likely she'll slip. Tomorrow she'll bury herself. We'll be there to clean up the rest. I froze. My heart pounded so hard it hurt, but my face stayed still, like stone. Each word sliced across my skin like a blade. Not because Adam betrayed our marriage, but because he betrayed my intellect. He betrayed the years of effort I had poured into this company. They had been planning this for a while. A message from over a month ago showed Adam using my connections to meet with investors privately and raise capital under his own name. Rachel had even sent over a proposed new company structure, with Adam as the sole CEO after I was removed. Every step, every detail was cold, calculated. I carefully placed the iPad back like I'd never touched it. In the stillness of the kitchen, I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Adam had left just minutes earlier to meet a lawyer about some paperwork. I used to think he was handling our business. Now I understood. He was preparing to push me out. I poured myself a glass of water, took small sips, and stared at the window. At the reflection of a woman with no illusions left. I whispered, "You're going to regret underestimating me." I set down the glass, dried my hands, and picked up my phone. From that moment forward, every move would be deliberate, like a chess game. Adam thought he was 3 steps ahead, but he had no clue I'd spent years studying his every move from the sidelines. I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in 2 years. Elena Brooks, an attorney specializing in divorce and business ownership. We'd once worked on a client merger, and I never forgot how sharply she caught a buried clause in a 30-page contract that the other side tried to sneak through. "Brooks Law Firm, this is Elena." Her voice was crisp and direct. "Elena, this is Mia Harper. I need to meet with you, not as a former client." A short pause on the other end. "What did he do?" "I'll explain everything in detail, but in short, I have evidence my husband is plotting to steal our company and possibly drug me, emotionally or physically, during an upcoming meeting. Do you have copies of the equity agreements and investment records?" "I have a physical copy in the office safe and a digital backup in my personal drive. I need to prepare before he realizes I've found out. Meet me this afternoon at 4. Bring printouts and any recording devices you've used." I nodded as if she could see me. "Thank you." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and logged into Bluegate's storage system. Fortunately, I'd always kept a separate, annotated version of important documents. My own reference copy for every time Adam had asked me to tweak something minor before sending it out. I sent an email with a simple subject line: "Urgent ownership and cash flow review," to Sam Keller, our head accountant. The message read, "Sam, I need a detailed financial report of Bluegate from January to now, including all personal withdrawals from the joint account, signed contracts and budget allocations. Do not inform Adam. I'll explain everything in person." I knew Sam. He hated vagueness and hated being manipulated even more. With just one line from me, he'd get to work immediately. After that, I checked my phone. A message from Adam. "I'll be back by early afternoon. Rachel might stop by to review some of the presentation files." I tightened my grip on the screen. Review was their word for check what Mia's up to. Fine. I opened a drawer and took out an old iPhone. Still working. I downloaded a recording app and labeled the file venturecore_draft PMP4, so if anyone stumbled upon it, they'd think it was just a practice session. I stuck a piece of double-sided tape to the back and placed it behind a bookshelf in our home office, where the signal was strongest, pointed directly at Adam's chair. I also changed my iCloud password and removed all device syncing with Adam's accounts. There would be no trace. On the surface, I was still the dutiful wife, loyal business partner. The woman about to present the most important pitch of her life. About an hour later, Adam came home. I heard the door open, the sound of his leather shoes on the hardwood floor. "Mia, where are you?" "Upstairs," I answered calmly. "I'm double-checking the Southwest region's analysis. Looks like they've adjusted their KPIs recently." He walked in, holding a paper bag from our usual coffee shop. "Brought you a mocha. Light on the sugar, just how you like it." I took it, smiling. "Thanks, that's thoughtful of you." The coffee smelled the same as always. But what I focused on wasn't the flavor in the cup. It was the flicker in Adam's eyes when I took that first sip. So quick no one else would have noticed, but I did. A glimmer of anticipation. He was waiting. Waiting for me to lose control. Waiting for me to ruin everything. I set the cup down on the table. 10 a.m. tomorrow, right? I asked. "Yeah, Zoom meeting with VentureCore's execs and the investors. But don't worry, you'll do great." I turned to look at him. "We'll do great," I said, light as air. Inside, I was already prepared. He had no idea I'd started gathering my pieces. And after tomorrow, there would be nowhere left for his plans to hide. The next morning, I woke up at 5:45. No alarm needed. My body rose on its own like it knew today would decide everything. The sky over Seattle was the usual dull gray, but inside me was a quiet, sharp storm. I meditated for 10 minutes, as I always did, then went to the bathroom with a mind so alert it startled me. No anxiety, no trembling, just razor focus. The meeting with VentureCore would begin at 10 a.m. via Zoom, with their full executive board and 3 reps from Altura Capital. My presentation had been backed up on 3 devices: cloud, local, and a separate USB just in case. Adam was already up. He was in the kitchen wearing the gray button-down I'd bought for him during a work trip to Denver. He had on an apron, holding a French press. The scent of dark roast coffee filled the air. "Take a seat, babe," he said, his voice sugary sweet. "I brewed the Guatemala blend, your favorite. You'll need all the energy you can get today." I walked to the table and sat on the wooden chair near the window. The soft morning light angled in just right, illuminating 2 matte black mugs. One said Mrs., the other, Mr. A matching set he'd given me the first year our company turned a profit. He placed the Mrs. mug in front of me, holding his own in his left hand. "Careful, it's hot," he winked. I leaned in and took a sniff. It smelled normal, just how I liked it, bold but not bitter, no sweetness. But Adam's eyes, the way he glanced at me and then looked away too quickly. Not like usual. It felt like he was waiting for something to happen. I picked up the mug, brought it to my lips, but didn't drink. I let my mouth touch the ceramic, holding still as if I were sipping. My eyes flicked to his, and in that instant, I caught the gleam. Cold, sharp, and calculated. I set the mug down. "Thank you," I said sweetly. "The coffee today tastes special." Adam laughed. "Maybe I doubled the grounds this time. Gotta fuel you up to crush it." I stood up, pretending to grab some documents from the kitchen counter. While he turned to check his laptop, I silently swapped the mugs. So smooth, no one would notice. I placed the Mrs. mug, now holding Adam's safe coffee, in front of my computer. His Mr. mug, the one with whatever he had prepped, now sat in his spot. 10 minutes later, we were in our shared office. Camera in position, lighting set, internet stable. I activated the recording app on the old iPhone I'd carefully hidden inside a document box on the bookshelf. At exactly 10 a.m. the Zoom screen came alive, Ventricor's logo and 6 video windows. CEO Peter Langston sat center, gray hair, serious expression. 2 operations directors flanked him. The investors from Altura Capital appeared in 3 separate windows, dressed sharply, faces unreadable. Adam started off. Thank you all for your time. We believe this strategy will help Ventricor maximize efficiency over the next 12 months. I sat still, watching. He was smooth through the first few lines. But by the 3rd sentence I noticed his right hand tremble slightly. I blinked. There it was. He continued. First, the data shows that. He furrowed his brow, his eyes glassy as if he were trying to read through smoke. He swallowed hard, winced, and grabbed the coffee mug again, taking a long sip, then exhaled heavily. I tilted my head. Are you okay? I asked softly, just loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm just a little tired. I'm fine, he said, shaking his head with a forced smile. But his chin had started to quiver noticeably, and when he fumbled the slide clicker 3 times, skeptical glances began to appear on screen. I eased in. Would you mind if I presented the data integration section? I asked, my eyes on Peter. He nodded. Please. I stood up and pulled up the next slide. My voice was clear, each number explained with precision. The investors' expressions slowly shifted from confusion to interest. I could tell they were comparing me and the man next to me, drenched in cold sweat. Adam lowered his head, trying to focus, but that mug, his mug, filled by his own hand, was quietly dragging him out of the very game he thought he controlled. Peter Langston tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing at the unusual pauses in Adam's speech. Are you all right? He asked politely, though his tone had shifted into evaluation. Yes, it's just, I probably didn't sleep enough last night. Adam forced a smile, but his voice cracked, like a strained cord about to snap. I kept my gaze calm, face composed. He was up until almost 2 a.m. last night, making final tweaks to the analysis, I said gently, like a concerned wife, though every word had weight. Perhaps I should continue while he takes a few minutes to rest. Peter nodded. That sounds like a good idea. Adam started to speak up in protest, but at that very moment, he grabbed the edge of the table, his lips trembling slightly. He stood up, intending to walk toward the bathroom, but had to steady himself on the chair. He no longer looked like the sharp CEO he tried to be. In the eyes of our clients, he now appeared to be a man who had lost control of his body in the most important presentation of his career. I didn't wait. Next is the internal systems integration map. I spent 3 months researching each of Ventricor's functional segments for this, I said, smoothly advancing the slide. All attention shifted instantly to me. Jennifer Klein, the COO, leaned toward her camera and asked, Mia, where did you obtain this data? I've never seen an external evaluation this detailed. We engaged with 5 regional branches under a hypothetical model, using Q3 reports and direct feedback from technical team leads. I personally interviewed 7 individuals under strict confidentiality, I replied. Jennifer gave a satisfied nod. That's impressive. I moved to the next slide. Here are the factors slowing down contract processing. Just within technical support alone, Ventricor is losing close to $3.2 million annually due to task redundancy and procedural misalignment across regions. Peter raised his eyebrows. Is that number accurate? Down to the line, I answered firmly. I cross-referenced every transaction sample with systems from 3 companies of comparable structure. Bluegate Partners doesn't just offer solutions, we quantify impact and implementation timelines. As I continued presenting, Adam returned. Face pale, lips drained of color. He sat down wordlessly, eyes fixed on me as if he didn't recognize the woman leading the meeting, like a true executive. There was no hesitation, no misstep, just calm command and precision in every word. Now, in terms of investment costs, I continued, we're proposing a 3-phase model. Initial costs come in at just 28% of the industry average, with the potential to reduce operating expenses by 18% within the first 6 months. Margaret Wynne, one of the 3 investors from Altura Capital, who had remained quiet until then, finally spoke. "What kind of assurance can you give us on timeline monitoring?" "We use a dual-layer reporting model," I emphasized. "Each phase has independent oversight and I personally supervise the progress at every major milestone." Peter looked at me, then glanced at Adam slouched in his chair. "You're the one directly managing the projects?" "I designed the entire strategy," I said softly, "so I stay involved from start to finish." Jennifer gave a small nod. "No wonder the proposals are so deep. Nothing about this feels surface level." I smiled in acknowledgement. Toward the end of the meeting, Peter looked into the camera and said, "I think we've seen enough. Bluegate is clearly one of the most promising candidates." I replied gently, "Thank you, Mr. Langston. We're ready to begin whenever Ventricore is." After the video windows began closing one by one, Adam still sat motionless. He buried his face in his hands. "What just happened?" he mumbled. I stood up, walked out, picked up the old phone with the recording still running, and smiled. Where he couldn't see me. As the door clicked shut behind the final "leave meeting" tone, I didn't allow myself even a second to relax. Adam remained at the table, hunched over, fingers interlocked like he was trying to hold on to the last scrap of control. But that control was already mine. Every step, every detail had gone exactly as I planned. I grabbed my phone, stepped out onto the balcony and called Elena Brooks, the attorney I'd reached out to earlier. "Brooks speaking," she answered on the second ring. "I have a full audio recording of the meeting. Clear footage showing Adam unable to maintain awareness or coherent speech in front of 6 stakeholders. I also have evidence that the coffee he gave me was swapped. Substance involved? I don't know what exactly, but if that mug is tested, I'm sure something will come up. More importantly, I have video, messages, and proof that he intended to remove me from the company." Elena's voice was as cold and sharp as always. "Good. Send everything to my secure email. I'll file for an emergency business asset protection order with the court this afternoon, along with a petition citing corporate sabotage." I ended the call. Standing there on the balcony, staring at the gray skyline of Seattle, I clenched the railing. It was only 2 p.m. The day was still long and I had more work to do. I returned to my office, opened my laptop and began drafting an email to Peter Langston, CEO of Ventricore. Subject: Thank you and a few personal notes. Dear Mr. Langston, thank you and your team for your valuable time during this morning's presentation. I deeply appreciate the positive feedback from you and the investors. I'm writing to you personally to share that a few internal matters have emerged within Bluegate Partners, which may affect the current leadership structure. However, I want to assure you that this will not impact our ability to execute the project, nor my personal commitment to Ventricore. Every piece of information I shared in the presentation was researched, developed, and prepared entirely by me. I remain fully ready to serve as your direct point of contact if you deem appropriate. Sincerely, Mia Harper, co-founder, Bluegate Partners. No need for many words. Peter was smart enough to read between the lines. I didn't have to physically remove Adam from his seat. Professionalism and results did that. Next, I logged into the corporate banking system. The company account was jointly held, but I could still prove the personal funds I invested. I had kept separate receipts, transfer slips, and even email confirmations of additional capital contributions during our 3rd year of operation. I opened a new business account under my name, at a different brand branch but within the same banking system. In the notes section I wrote, "Temporary transfer, personal assets invested in the business not yet recouped." The amount I transferred wasn't large, just about $120,000, but it was enough to create a clear boundary between my assets and the shared assets Adam was about to try to cling to. Once done, I called Sam Keller, the chief accountant. "Sam, I need you to do something urgent," I said, my tone serious. "I need a cash flow statement, profit analysis, and the contribution of each founding member of Bluegate from 2018 to now. You must not inform Adam. Send it directly to me via a secure link." Sam was silent for a few seconds. "What's going on, Mia?" I'll tell you later once you have the statement. Trust me, this time it's about the company's survival and the truth. Sam sighed. All right, I'll get started right away. I hung up, leaning back in my chair. A question echoed in my mind. Why did Adam think I wouldn't notice? Why did he think the woman who built an entire corporate strategy system couldn't see through a flimsy betrayal plan? Perhaps because he was too used to me standing behind the scenes, used to me not demanding the spotlight. But what Adam didn't understand was that I didn't need the light, I only needed results. And now, as I was gradually separating myself from him legally, transparently, and firmly, he would have nothing left to rely on but the hollow words he once used to mask his true capabilities. Just 3 weeks after the meeting with Ventricore, everything around Adam collapsed faster than any plan he had ever conceived. On the first Monday of the month, I officially filed for divorce at the King County Court, along with a file over 80 pages thick, including copies of messages between Adam and Rachel, the recording of the meeting showing his clear decline, screenshots of the document revision history that I had nearly handled alone, and especially the clip of Adam placing the coffee cup in front of me on that fateful morning. The coffee that contained the substance that made him blur his vision in front of the entire investment community. Elena Brooks presented the file to the judge as if reading an indictment in a high-level fraud case. Even Adam's lawyer, a person who had represented several well-known CEOs, had to request a pause in the hearing after 20 minutes to consult with the client. In the waiting room, Adam sat with his head against the wall, hands covering his face, while his lawyer looked down at his phone, quietly opening a job search app. 4 days later, Adam signed the divorce papers and the agreement to withdraw from the company with only one condition: to retain symbolic shares and not be criminally prosecuted. I agreed. Not because I was soft-hearted, but because I knew keeping him as a useless name in the company records would only prolong his embarrassment. Bluegate Partners was quickly re-registered with me as the sole CEO with full legal representation and asset management authority. Sam Keller, the chief accountant, submitted a report confirming I was the main investor from the second year, and also signed all major strategic contracts. As for Adam, in less than a month, all the investment relationships he had tried to maintain through wine parties and hollow compliments had withdrawn. Altura Capital refused to sign any contracts bearing his name. One of the investors even directly messaged my email, "We only work with people who truly know what they're talking about." As for Rachel Weston, Adam's special assistant, everything ended even faster. Right after I sent the message thread and internal document access history from Rachel's company email to the HR department, she was asked to hand over her laptop, phone, and leave the office within an hour. 4 days later, a complaint about data security violations and intellectual property infringement was sent by me to the Washington State Financial Planning Licensing Board. Within 12 days, Rachel's professional license was suspended and the investigation process began. A person who once dreamed of running the company with Adam now couldn't work in the industry for at least the next 5 years. I didn't feel joy seeing their downfall, only relief, as if the room had finally been cleared of toxic smoke, allowing light to enter. One afternoon, Adam came to the old office, unannounced. I was in a meeting with the new project team. He stood in the hallway, not entering. His face was thinner, hair disheveled, eyes sunken. He extended his hand, hesitating. "I just wanted to say sorry." I looked at him for a long time. "What are you apologizing for, Adam?" I asked. "Poisoning me? Or trying to take away the career I built with blood and sleepless nights?" He lowered his face, hand withdrawn. "I don't know. I thought I could control everything. But I misjudged you." I nodded slightly. "You're not the first to do that." Then I turned away, closing the door behind me. No more words were needed. His story ended there, with a closed door and a man lost amidst what was once the illusion of power. As for me, I continued. 6 months later, I sat alone in the conference room on the 18th floor of the new Office Horizon Plaza building overlooking Elliott Bay. The sunset light streamed through the thick glass, casting a gentle golden hue on the walnut wood table, where the latest quarterly report of Bluegate Partners lay. 212 pages. Each number in it was the result of a journey I had walked alone after everything. Since the day Adam stepped down, I've had full control of the company. The partnership with VentureCore didn't just go smoothly, it exceeded all expectations. Within the first 4 months, their internal performance improved by 22%, while they saved nearly $3.8 million in operational costs, exactly as outlined in the model I proposed during that meeting. 3 senior executives from VentureCore, including Peter, Langston, and Langston, sent me personal thank you emails, along with invitations to expand the partnership into their Chicago and Phoenix branches. When I signed the second contract with them, Peter said one sentence I'll never forget. "I've never seen someone lead with such sharpness and kindness at the same time." I offered a quiet smile in return. I didn't need to answer. Results had already spoken for me. Within 6 months, Bluegate Partners expanded by 40% and brought on 3 senior professionals, a data analyst from San Francisco, a former tech director from a recently acquired startup, and a legal expert in corporate contracts. Each was someone I once dreamed of hiring, but never thought I'd be able to recruit so quickly. We also signed 2 more major contracts, one with a retail chain expanding across the West Coast, and one with an educational organization undergoing a full data transformation. I personally supervised each project during the first 3 months before handing them over to dedicated teams. Everything ran flawlessly. Adam never reappeared. I heard he tried starting a new consulting firm, but with no partners, no capital, and most importantly, no reputation. After that failed attempt, he disappeared from the industry radar. As for Rachel, she left Seattle, her LinkedIn profile was deactivated, and her professional license remained suspended pending further investigation. On late nights after the office lights had gone off, I'd often stay a few extra minutes. Not to work, just to look around. To take in the space I rebuilt piece by piece. To look at the chair Adam once sat in, now belonging to a 27-year-old female strategist I recently hired. To look at the nameplate Mia Harper-CEO etched in glass. Not as a display of pride, but as a quiet reminder that I reclaimed everything once at risk. And strangely, I didn't feel bitter anymore. I felt light, as if the storm had passed and now all I had to do was lift my head and see the blue sky. One May morning, while sipping coffee on the office balcony, I received a new email. "We would like to nominate Ms. Mia Harper for the 2025 Innovative Leadership in Small Business Award, Seattle Business Circle. Some people once thought I was just a shadow, the support role, the seat beside the public face. But in the end, it was that very person who handed me the opportunity to prove the opposite, through his own betrayal. Now that everything is finally in place, I stayed silent. My story didn't begin with victory, it began with betrayal. My story didn't begin with victory. It began with betrayal. But the moment I was underestimated became the very opening that allowed me to rise and take control on my own terms. I didn't need loud revenge. I only needed truth and success to speak for me. In this fiercely competitive world, the biggest lesson I've learned is this: when you know your worth, no one can take it from you. And sometimes silence is the loudest response of all. What do you think of Mia's choices and how she overcame it all? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss more inspiring stories about life, marriage, and family.